Let's talk social media. BMW designers hate BMW. A car only a mother could love. Quad exhausts are diluting the M brand. Cheap looking interior. Sunroof that doesn't open is effing robbery. It's like a 2% yogurt, not the worst, but still pretty bad. And now my favorite. Believe and put your faith in Jesus Christ for your sins, and you will be saved. Okay, sounds like a solid plan. But why is every internet warrior so worked up? Because of this. This is the all-new BMW X3. Today, I'm here to find out if the stylish X3 is all you've dreamed of, or the crossover equivalent of a sad desk salad. Let's go find out. All right, it's fast, I'll give you that. So let's start with that first, right? 393 horsepower, 428 pounds-feet of torque, so about 11 horsepower and about 59 pounds-feet of torque more than the outgoing X3 M40i. The car, it's a little bit heavier, but not by much, around 50-something kilograms. So while the 11 horsepower more, it's not gonna make a difference, the pounds-feet of torque will, because as you can see, overtaking, it's a little bit faster. 0 to 60, 4.4 seconds. That's also slightly faster than in the past. But of course, it's not just about those specs, it's also about the engine. So it's got a glorious B58 3.0 six-cylinder engine. This engine can be found in a lot of new BMWs, and it is by far my favorite BMW engine today. It's the third generation, they call it TU3. Essentially, it's called a technical upgrade 3, and it comes with a 48-volt mild hybrid. That means that it has an e-motor that's integrated in between the engine and the transmission. And that helps quite a bit, especially, like I said, with overtaking, get a little bit more power, especially when using the boost mode. Additionally, it's gonna save you some fuel. There are a few hardware upgrades included in this technical upgrade number 3. For example, the injection system, the crankshaft, and some small adjustments to the turbocharger. The transmission, of course, ZF 8-speed. There are no major changes to it. It's the same workhorse that's been used by BMW across the entire lineup, and it is great. The shifts, very, very smooth. You can see the car simply takes off. Sound-wise, this is an European spec, so it's got the OPF, which is the auto particle filter. Essentially, it's needed for emission regulations, and therefore the sound, it's not going to be as loud and as deep as the US spec cars. On the mechanical side of things, the new BMW X3 generation comes with a brand new steering system. It's called EPS APA, and essentially it allows BMW to adjust the kinematics and the elastokinematics of the car. The new steering system enables the engineering team to exert more force into the axle. One of the main benefits in a real-life scenario is the additional steering comfort in straight-line driving, varying from precise to light as needed. Allows BMW to offer a wide range of applications specific to the car, ranging from a more comfortable steering input to a more aggressive one in the sportier modes. There are no less than 4 different suspensions for the new BMW X3 family. There is a standard suspension, there is an M Sport suspension, and there are 2 adaptive suspensions. One of them you can only get in the X3 M50. But it's not all about the car being stiffer, it's also about the frequency of the dampers. And in this case, the car feels a little bit more comfortable than before, which was one of the main complaints with the X3 M40i. I was told by the engineering team that their main goal was really to gain some comfort in the X3. The BMW wanted to have this wide range of driving modes. In the past, the X3 M40i has been criticized quite a bit for being quite harsh as a daily driver, and they decided to change that in the X3 M50. So if you go into the comfort mode, you're gonna get a softer X3 than ever before, but then of course you can change the character of the car just like in other BMWs by simply switching into the sport mode. And that's going to change the character of the car quite a bit. Also getting a little bit more fake sound inside the cabin, and you can hear that probably in the video as well. The ride becomes a little bit bouncier, a little bit harsher, I would say. Maybe just not as harsh as in the X3 M40i, but you will definitely feel it. Of course, the throttle response, it's a little bit more aggressive, so that will help quite a bit, especially with overtaking. Even driving today on 20-inch wheels, the car feels extremely comfortable over uneven surfaces, and it definitely makes for a very good daily driver. The steering is definitely a lot softer in the comfort mode compared to the X3 M40i. You can definitely feel the difference, especially when you drive in city centers. So the car, it's a lot easier to maneuver. Of course, there isn't much feedback in the steering, but then when you dial the car up into Sport or Sport Plus, the steering stiffens up quite a bit, and it will deliver sharper inputs than in the comfort mode. Now let's see how the boost mode works in the car. So essentially, if you hold on for 3 seconds or less, you get in this additional boost from the engine for 10 seconds at a time. You can repeat this as often as you'd like. So here's a nice stretch of curvy roads, and we can test driving dynamics a little bit more. You can see the engine just pulls really, really hard. The car stays nicely composed on the road. There isn't a lot of body roll, which is great. And once again, this is why I love the M Performance version of the X3 and the X4. Here's some other really nice roads here. Once again, great shift from that 8-speed automatic. Very, very smooth. I love that 8-speed ZF transmission. It is one of the best, if not the best, on the market. You can hear the engine sound. Of course, there is a little bit of a fake sound coming in, turning in. I mean, a lot of grip from the car. It's an X-Drive. Not much body roll, as I said. You can see here, the seats are hugging me nicely, really, really comfortable. And here we go, pushing the car hard, turning in. Sometimes it makes you even forget that you're actually driving an X3 or you're not driving a sedan, for example. Brakes are great, braking hard, downshifting. Here we go. I love that B58 engine. It is so good. Very good, BMW. Very, very good. This is a fun car. Of course, some of you just simply want to know how does the car drive compared to the X3 M40i. And even though it feels like on paper there are a lot of major differences, I would say they're quite similar. Of course, the extra power, the extra torque makes a little bit of a difference, but when it comes to normal daily driving, that won't have a huge impact on how you perceive the car. Granted, if you end up on some of those nice curvy roads around Munich and you have the ability to push the car closer to its limit, you might find those little deltas between the two, but overall it's pretty much the same character. This is a car that's a lot of fun. It's always been one of my favorite cars because I feel like the X3 M, it's a little bit too much, a little bit too stiff to be a good daily driver, where the M Performance models are always in that sweet spot of the crossover lineup. Overall, the car is also quite composed. You can tell that they've done some additional work on the chassis. You can also feel the suspension rebounding differently than in the X3 M40i. There isn't a lot of body roll, honestly. It is still a quite big car. I mean, this is as large as the first generation BMW X5, if I recall correctly, but they managed to give the car a very sporty allure. As I'm driving through a city center right here, you can hear how silent the cabin really is. So if there is one improvement there compared to maybe recent X3 that I've driven, it's the fact that the cabin is really nicely insulated from the outside. It is very, very quiet. There isn't much noise from the tires as well. The road noise, it's very, very minimal in this car. All right, so now let's talk about the design of the BMW X3. Let's start at the front. Of course, as you can see, it's got a brand new fascia, which is different on the X3 M50 than on the regular X3. And you can see that by just taking a look at the kidney grille. It's got these horizontal bars compared to the other design with vertical slats in the X3. And of course, this is going to be unique to the M50 model. The other big change on the car, it's really the new headlight. BMW moved away from the double headlamps of the past, but they still want to maintain the duality of their headlights, and they have those two LED bars integrated inside right there. Of course, that's created a little bit of a ruckus in the BMW community. Everybody was a little bit upset because there are no more double headlamps, the iconic headlamps, but BMW design says that it's not always about the round shape, but more about the duality of these elements, and we're going to see that in the back in a second as well. Other than that, you have a very upright design at the front, very bold. It definitely looks a lot sportier than the outgoing G01 X3 M40i. It's got this more upright nose.
So that's another feature of the car that's quite unique. And then of course the last design elements on the hood as well. You don't have these aggressive creases coming down. You only have those two small creases that incorporate the BMW roundel. In the bottom, you also see this very aggressive front end. So you have these large air openings, of course, typical to the MPA model, the X3 M50. And you have this kind of strange split in here, which plays a role with the symmetric design with this piece right there. The other thing worth mentioning is that the fact that the BMW designer decided to incorporate the LiDAR in the kidney grille. So right now it's actually on this side of the kidney. It kind of blends in, especially if you get the M Sport Pro package, which adds all these blacked out elements. Then you can really see this radar LiDAR from far away. A new thing on the BMW X3, it's also the illuminated kidney grille, and you see it right here. It's available on all the models, not just on this one. Of course, it's a little bit different than the other models because there are two split kidneys right here, and that's going to give the car a completely different look at the front. Of course, overall, the front end, it's all about simplicity. They call it a monolithic design, which means less parts, less creases, yet they still want to maintain that dynamic and aggressive look of the M Performance model. Side view, of course, you'll notice immediately the large wheels. So the BMW X3 comes with a range of 18 to 21 inches in the standard form, but you can also get a 22-inch if you order them from the BMW accessories program. This one runs on 20 inches, and you can see it's got a brand new design, this dual look with a blacked out and chrome elements. Then of course you can also see the red calipers of the M Sport brakes hiding right behind those. Rides on Continental Sport Contact 7, of course there are other options as well. The one thing you'll notice is the fact that there are no more spats right here. So it's been removed, and right now it's a single body piece right here. Of course, BMW says that it's not needed anymore because the car is a little bit wider at the front, so then it incorporates the wheels and tires quite nicely. Going with the same simplistic look and simple shapes, you also notice this line running on the top and one on the bottom, but other than that, it's a pretty clean. Once again, they call this a monolithic design. You have flush door handles. Now it's a staple in the BMW lineup. Being the M Performance model, you are getting M mirrors. Of course, it's not the first time the BMW decides to use this on non-full M cars. Size-wise, the car it's a little bit longer, a little bit wider, and sits a little bit lower than the outgoing X3. But overall, the dimensions of the car are quite similar. The only major change on the side that you will notice is this more coupe-ish roofline, which gives the car more of a coupe-ish crossover look than ever before. Now let's talk about the rear end of the car. And that starts with the brand new taillights. At the first glance, they might resemble the BMW X5, but of course there are a few differences that make it stand out on their own. You have this elongated shape right that goes into the rear fender. Then of course you have this very unique graphics inside the taillight. The new X3, it's also more aerodynamic than ever before, and that comes from certain elements on the car, like these roof spoilers right there, which also helps with downforce. It's got a 0.27 coefficient drag compared to 0.29 on the outgoing X3. Staying with the design in the back, once again, you will notice that the license plate has moved lower into the bumper. Kind of gives me a vibe of a Mini XM in that perspective, and of course cleaner shapes than before too. You have this semi-aggressive rear diffuser that incorporates the quad pipes. So that's the duality that I mentioned at the front. You see this in the back as well. For the first time, the quad pipes are offered on a non-X3M car, the X3 M50. All right, let's talk about the space of the car. So cargo space, 570 liters. You can extend this to 1700 liters. That's about 100 liters more than before. In standard form, you're getting about 20 liters more than the outgoing X3. Of course, as you can see, you have additional storage right here as well. You can lift this up and store a few more things in there. But overall, it's your typical X3 space. Of course, not a major difference compared to the outgoing model. So it's not all about the exterior design, it's of course about the technology, the interior cabin as well. So I'm gonna hop inside and we're gonna talk about that.
All right, so let's talk about the interior of the BMW X3 because it's probably the one part that has been criticized quite a bit, especially on social media. I've seen a lot of comments on this, so we're gonna spend a little bit of time on the interior design. So
First off, let's start with the positive things, right? You're getting a brand new steering wheel. You can see this flat bottom. Once again, no surprise, BMW has introduced this steering wheel in other models. There will be in future models as well. Of course, because you're getting the X3 M50 with the M Sport Pro package, you also have this differentiator, which is the red mark at 12 o'clock. So that's quite cool. Design-wise, you're getting this big plastic though pedal shifters. You have a boost mode as well, and we've talked about that when I drove the car. Next thing, of course, you're getting the large curve display. You've seen it in other BMWs as well. The only difference is that you're getting iDrive 9, operating system 9. The way to tell that, if you go to the home screen, you are going to see this quick select on the left side. So that's iDrive 9 for you. It's a little bit more responsive than before. So as you can see, it's actually quite nice right now. It was a little bit laggy, especially in the X1 and X2. But as you can see, going from one screen to another, it is quite responsive. So that's a nice improvement by BMW as well. Of course, because it doesn't have any physical buttons, you have to control now the AC through the screen, and you can see it right there. You have this digital interpretation of the old school physical buttons. Once again, you've seen it before as well. Speaking of more new things, you have this interaction bar which runs through the center of the dashboard right there, and then of course onto the doors. We're going to mention that in a second. You can change the color on this one. Now it's in the sport mode, but if I go into, let's say, the expressive mode, as you can see, it changes right there as well. But for now, how about we stay in sport, because I like that M colors combination a lot more. This center area has been redesigned as well, so the vents, they're different than in the outgoing model, and of course different in any other BMW. You're still controlling the vent directions through these switches. It's a more simplified look, but of course that comes with the expense of no physical buttons. Staying within this area, there is a lot of plastic, right? So we have to talk about this. This is probably one of the cons inside the new X3. It doesn't feel as premium as before in some aspects. It does in others, like, you know, the steering wheel, the quality of the leather and the fabrics and all of that. But in certain areas, just too much plastic. Luckily, you're not getting the piano black right here, so that's a positive, but it does feel a little bit cheap, and that's something that I wish BMW would have done a better job with this car. Another novelty in the car, it's this jewelry box, I guess they call it. I'm not sure why, it sounds fancy. It's quite cool because it's very functional. You have a lot of space to store things. Of course, you have wireless charging on the left side only, so that part is not charging your phone. But as you can see right here, there is a lot of space right now for beverages, you know, bottles and all of that. And you have this, I guess, triangle that looks kind of like a jeweler type of thing, you know, and it's unique to the X3 M50 because you're not getting the M logo in the non-M performance car. Okay, so one thing that I love in the car is the fact that BMW decided to keep the iDrive controller. It's a lot easier to control the functions of the car through this one, so that's a positive. I don't know for how long they're going to keep it in the car. Maybe the facelift will remove this. Not 100% sure yet, but for now, enjoy it because that's a good thing to have it in the car. It makes interaction with the screen a lot easier. The gear shifter, as I mentioned in my previous X3 video, it's gone. So you have this toggle shifter right there. Once again, the idea is to simplify this design right here. On the negative side of things, piano black, it is back, and you have it right here. Once again, not my favorite material. One, because it shows smudges and fingerprints quite a bit, and it does scratch quite easy as well. And you can see the same type of material on the door handles too, which is a high interaction area, which I'm assuming that's gonna scratch quite fast. So not ideal to have it there. I wish they would have done a different material, but it is what it is for now. Speaking of more materials and trims, you have this unique trim right here. It seems to be plastic, but it looks like wood in many ways, and probably this one plays within the whole idea that you can have a fully vegan interior in the X3 if you want to. All right, so one other thing that people complain about is this area right here, this island on the door. One, you're getting the interaction bar right here, which is cool, gives the car a more elevated look, but then there is a lot more plastic. So that's plastic right there, not ideal. That section, it's also plastic. You might be wondering what's this. Well, once again, memory seats are there. You might have seen the previous X3 video. Of course, lock and unlock buttons, and then you can control the vent speed from there as well. As you can see, it's got this haptic, you know, feel. I don't know if that's ideal. I still prefer the old school switches and buttons, but that area has been redesigned quite a bit compared to anything else we've seen before. The other thing some people complain about is the fact that there is no traditional door handle to pull the door in, but in fact there is. So if you open the door, you can either do this, which is not ideal because as you can see, you have to be on the tall side to reach it, but you can actually just grab it from here and close the door. So that's one way to do it. Of course, more plastic. Now let's talk about my next favorite thing in the car, and that's the lack of a moonroof. So there is this debate, what's a sunroof, what's a moonroof? Well, I define moonroof as a roof that you can actually open or tilt a little bit, and it's gone in this car. So you don't have the option in the BMW X3 to open this beautiful roof. You get a lot of light in, but unfortunately it does not open in any form of shape. So in my opinion, it's an oversight, because I feel like if you could have opened this a little bit, it would have made the car more inviting inside. It would have made journeys a little bit more pleasant, especially being able to get some fresh air inside the car. So I do wonder why BMW decided to just skip that feature, which would have made a lot of people happy. You're also getting a lot of options when it comes to fabric on your seats. In this case, you have this Alcantara with this fake leather. So of course, that plays with the whole idea that you can get a fully vegan interior if you want to. Of course, certain markets like the US will emphasize the use of leather quite a bit. So if you love leather, you will have that option as well. Also on the door panel, you will see this fabric that's covering the speaker grills. Of course, the fabric has been another controversial topic because people don't know exactly how that's gonna last over time, if it's gonna get dirty easily, if it's gonna be easy to clean. But nonetheless, it's a functional piece there because it does hide the speaker grills. Love it or hate it, you don't see them in the car anymore. All right, so let's start with one of the things in the backseat that people don't like. It's the fact that you're not getting the ambient light in here as well. So no interaction bar, you're getting a chrome piece right there. Of course, more plastic. Let me close this. You're getting the tweeter right there, and then of course the hidden speakers are behind this fabric as well. There is a lot of plastic in the back here too, of course, and the door handle too, right here as well. So not very premium, I would say. And then you can see this area as well, more plastic, at least it's not piano black, but it's one area where you can control the AC for the rear seating position. Speaking of the rear seating position, I adjusted the front seat to my height. As you can see, plenty of knee room. It's got these nice scoops in the back of the seat, so you can kind of push your knees in there if you want to. Plenty of side elbow room, as you can see. You got a nice design piece right here to rest your arm, so that's good. Headroom, I would say at least 10 centimeters, so that's quite adequate despite having a more coupe-ish roofline than the outgoing model. But now let's see how much space you have in the back seat if you have 3 adults riding with you. All right, so the X3 might not be known as a car for 5 people. It's a little bit tight. I'm 6'2", 1.9 meters tall. What about you?
180.
180?
183.
Okay, so we're quite tall actually, all of us. As you can see, plenty of headroom for the 3 of us. But when it comes to side room, we're a little bit, squeezed in here. So I would say if you want to travel over long distances, I definitely suggest 2 people in the back and maybe 1 child in the center. It's not an X5, it's not an X7, but it's doable if you want to. Knee room, I've showed you my knee room position here. As you can see, for my co-passengers, decent space there. So once again, it's not an X5, it's not an X7, but if you want to go for a longer drive, you could probably with other adults as well. All right, so enough about the design. How about we go back for a drive?
So after seeing what the car can do on some of those curvy roads around Munich, now it's time to see what it can do in traffic. Or as the Germans say, Stau. And there is plenty of it around Munich. But that's okay, because I also want to test the car in a daily driving situation, and this is one of them. Because if you buy the BMW X3, you're not going to use it to go carve any canyons or hit the track. You will use the car 99% of the time as a daily driver. So of course, when you daily drive your car, and especially when you're in traffic, you care more about the technology that's inside the car. That's going to make that ride a little bit more comfortable, I would say. And in this case, that means also having a lot of driving assistant features. Of course, you are getting the automatic lane change, the active line guiding, and of course, the active cruise control with traffic light recognition. Compared to the BMW 5 Series, for example, the new X3 doesn't have the highway assistant, which essentially was an implementation of the level 2+ driving assistant features. So let's activate the driver assistant features. IO, and right now It's activated. As you can see, I can take my hands off the wheel, and then I should get an alert. Right now you can see the flashing yellow lights. I'm supposed to put the hands back on the steering. What I also particularly enjoy in this new X3, it's also the head-up display. It has been improved compared to the G01 generation. You're getting full graphics right in front of you, a lot of information that could be either maximized or minimized. So if you're looking for a more streamlined look on your head-up display, you can actually change that. Of course, because it comes equipped with the CarPlay and Android Auto, you can also have that display onto your head-up, so you don't always have to look onto the side screen. Space-wise, when you drive the car, you sit very comfortably behind the wheel because you have a very high sitting position. Of course, there is plenty of room. You can see plenty of headroom right here, at least 10-15 centimeters, so that's quite a lot considering that I'm 6'2", 6'3" tall. Plenty of side room. You also have this really nice elbow support on the side, and then of course a nice wide side arm as well. Now let's talk about the comfort of the seats. Someone asked me specifically to test the comfort in the X3 M40i versus the X3 M50, and I don't have an X3 M40i today, but there was a display car M40i, and I was able to sit in those seats for maybe a few minutes, so just kind of get a feel, have a baseline of what the seats were before. I can tell you that in my short experience with the car today, they feel a little bit more comfortable. They hug you nicely. It's got a really, really nice design. It's not aggressive. It doesn't feel like it's biting into your back. And I've been driving now for about an hour, and they still feel quite comfortable. So as I'm driving by the BMW headquarters in Munich, let's try to wrap up this video and answer this question. Should you buy the BMW X3 M50 or not? The short answer is yes. The longer answer has a few caveats, and those caveats are related to the interior design and the interior quality of the car. I've already mentioned the lack of the physical buttons and the large curved display, which are not my favorite in new BMWs. But what I dislike a little bit more in this car, it's really the fact that the materials don't feel as premium as I would like them to feel. So you have a little bit too much plastic for my liking, a lot of plastic right there. Of course, on the doors, you have a little bit too much piano black as well, which is not great. It's showing fingerprints, it can scratch easily. You have that on the high impact areas on the door as well. The passengers in the back will notice the lack of an ambient light, so the interaction bar from the front doesn't move to the back. The moonroof is gone as well, so you only get this sunroof option which doesn't open. Customers really love that feature. I've seen plenty of comments on social media, on our YouTube videos, and also on the website where people were complaining specifically first about the lack of a moonroof. Now, if you're willing to look past all of these issues, then the BMW X3 M50, it truly is a good car. I still believe it's BMW's best SUV. One, because it's not too expensive. This car starts at $65,000. It is big enough to accommodate a family of 4, even 5. And it offers great driving dynamics for a crossover. The X5 with the M60i might be faster, might sound a little bit better because of the twin turbo, but it also costs a lot more. So overall, this new generation BMW X3, it is a very compelling product, and I absolutely recommend taking a look at this car, especially in the X3 M50 trim. This was a fairly quick review. We'll have a chance to drive the car in the near future one more time, and then we're going to go into a lot more details about the daily driving experience. And then, of course, we're going to talk about more on the technology in the car and show you some of the tech features as well. Unfortunately, we didn't have a chance today to really go over all of this, but hopefully this was an informative video, and I'll hope to see you in the next one. And you can see, you can push the car quite hard. It's got really nice body composure. It turns in quite nicely. You can see it rotates nicely through these bends, and of course there is plenty of power coming from that B58 engine.